everyone. Welcome to another episode of Re Tsene with Pretoria Psychologists. My name is I'm the founder of Man Up Conversations. And today I want to talk about this topic of men's mental health. I'm really proud to be part of this movement because I'm seeing a lot of conversation happening, whether it's on radio, whether it's on traditional media, whether it's on social media, or just around conversations that people are having with each other, trying to understand what is really going on. So what I'm trying to do in this video, or what I want to do in this video, is talk around why men are struggling with mental health challenges and some of the stigma around men's mental health. So we have to look at our society first and look at the history of our country, right? Our country has a very violent background. If you think of apartheid, sure, we might say it was years ago, but some of us who are alive now might have some memories of some of the violence we saw back in those days when either people were marching or demonstrating on the streets and cops were coming to beat them up, or maybe we know our fathers who used to call their boss's sons, clean bus, or our boss's son would call them skim, or whatever other terms that they used to call them. So men in general in South Africa come from a place where they were being very belittled, they were being very abused, and of course their mental and emotional health was in a very confused and a position where they never could have a chance to retaliate or try to work on those different areas of their emotional and mental health, because it was time for them to survive. It was time for them to move with the times. There was no time for people to check in with each other in terms of, hey, how are you doing? There was no time for those men or even women in those times to sit and talk about what's happening with them and to even go for counseling. So you understand that, that behavior of back then has somewhat trickled down to what we are living in our day-to-day now, where men of the day are not seen as men who experience, hardship, mental difficulties or emotional difficulties for that matter. And what then happens when a man doesn't see himself as someone who can experience these challenges is that we then take on this sort of perceived strong masculine man who can figure everything out, who has to know everything about himself, who has to hide some of the things that he's going through that he doesn't understand, or he doesn't have to show moments of weakness to the people that are around him. So in doing that, we then take and internalize everything that's going on with us, and without having the tools or the skills to be able to have conversation with friends, with family, whether with a professional about what we're going through, then that kind of stops us from getting the help and some of the conversations that we need, so we can start slowly getting into unpacking some of those issues and getting to a place where we can then see that, okay, this is where we need help, this is where we're falling short. So I hope that you listening to this video right now, you also explore what parts of yourself are you hiding from, what parts of yourself are you afraid to speak about, what parts of yourself are you afraid to look at and put a spotlight on, so you can see how you can work and improve on those parts, because of this whole idea that you're a man and you must be able to withstand and go through anything that comes at you. But unfortunately, the world doesn't work like that. We all have limitations in some areas of our lives, and it's up to us, to go out there and try to find out what it is that we can do to better and improve our lives, to improve our situations. And this goes both ways. I mean, when I think about mental health as a man and how I've gone through different things, some of the things I might not even have gone through, but I've seen other people go through it, and through seeing how other men go through different challenges, or maybe handle those challenges or deal with those challenges, then that also gives me insight that next time I might go through something similar, then this is what I might have to do. So, we have to learn from each other as men, and also create these spaces where we can then talk to each other and share ideas about what is bothering us, and also how we can move forward with the stuff that's bothering us, So talking about it in terms of why we're struggling, I think one of the key things is, there's a lot of shame in the male community, and that shame is brought about how society also perceives men, that we have to have it all figured out. A man must do this, or indota must, all of those terms that come with associated with manhood. And there's this idea of toxic masculinity as well, where men don't even know how to behave or how to show up in the world because they feel like we are inherently toxic, right? So you look at what messages are being said about toxic or about masculinity, not even about toxic masculinity. You bound to hear, or as a little kid, you bound to hear about toxic masculinity before you hear about positive masculinity. So that makes you feel like you need to grow up working to fix yourself instead of working to just be a normal human being who goes through everything that every other human being goes through. But of course, there are some adjustments that you might have to make in your personality and how you show up to people. So those are some of the key areas that I've found. This is based on some research, this is based on some studies, and this is also based on some conversations that I've had with men on my podcast, Man Up Conversations. So, let's talk about the stigma as well that exists in communities, right? One of the most basic things I think that most Black people would agree with is immediately when you come to talk to someone about a mental challenge that you're having, one of the first things they tell you is, you're crazy. All of those things that we say that are so dehumanizing to people, then that makes them feel like, hey, what? If I've got this issue, I'm definitely not going to go out there and start talking about it, because if I try to do that, then people are going to say I'm crazy, I'm off the chain, and all of those terms that we put on people who are really struggling with some really deep issues that we might not even know nothing about. So instead, we choose to build humor around that. We choose to make jokes around that. We choose to belittle the experience because it's something that we are unfamiliar with. It's one of those things, right, that they say that most times when we don't have anything to say about a certain topic, we make jokes about it. And that's what I see men's mental health becoming, where you see men who used to be great men who used to do incredible things in society, suddenly lose their mind, or something goes wrong with their mental health, and we see them in the streets and they being put on social media as a joke, as opposed to speaking to that man and trying to find out, what are you dealing with and where can we get you help? So I really hope that as you're listening to this, you can have some pictures pop up in your mind in terms of where you could have went wrong, or where you could see someone maybe as you walk by today and see someone on the road, or maybe a friend of yours that you haven't spoken to in a long time, who's spoken to you about something that you never really understood. But now I think you're coming into a different kind of knowledge and a different kind of expression, where that tells you that, hey, the person might be struggling with something deep and they're not necessarily crazy like society would kind of make them seem to be back in the days, or even now in our days, right? So, I don't want to go on for too long with this one, but I wanted to give some ideas in terms of which areas are limiting men and which areas are keeping the stigma around men's mental health prevalent and keeping men from seeking the help they need, but more so also keeping men from looking inside themselves and saying to themselves that, hey, I'm not in a good way, I need some help, where do I go? So on the second follow-up video to this, we will then talk about which areas that men can go to get some mental health support, to get some conversations around mental health going, and how they can support themselves in a case where you don't have anyone who can help you with that. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to follow Pretoria Psychologists on the YouTube channel, on Facebook, and everywhere, man. Make sure you go out there and speak to the right people that know about this stuff, but also take it upon yourself to educate yourself and learn about these different areas where you might need help, where maybe your mental health is not in the best of conditions, and you might need to talk to someone. Maybe learn the language a little bit as well, so you can also articulate what you're going through and people can understand, well, what are you talking about when you're talking about these different issues? I think one of the things is we must always remember that no one is here to save you, no one is coming to save you. You have to be your own ally in some cases, where you have to now go out there and purposely seek the stuff that you know will make you a much better person, not just for society, but for yourself first. Because if you are well, then everything around you will be well. So really hope you enjoyed this message, guys. I am This is Pretoria Psychologists. Re Tsene Mondays. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.